Welcome to Embodied Microdosing, where we explore the miracles that happen when we combine intentional doses of sacred mushrooms with trauma-informed somatic practices. Hi, I'm Rai, and this ministry is on a mission to help you embody healing. Let's answer your questions and call in expansion so you can integrate these highly effective evidence-based tools into your journey. Embodied microdosing is where science and spirituality meet to awaken the healer within. Let's take one conscious breath together. And begin.
Hooray! We're back for a fresh, new episode of the Embodied Microdosing podcast. And I'm very excited about the content today. I've really been in my own trauma work, and I want to talk about that word trauma because I've been thinking about that word specifically and what it may invoke in you when you hear it. But I have been doing the deeper reprogramming work of going within every morning and working with the parts of myself that are experiencing dysregulation and grief and pain and anger, and I am bringing my tools, my resources, my methods into my healing experiences every morning. They last anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, I would say. I am using some guided tracks. I am playing in the realm of unconscious reprogramming and hypnosis. I am weaving in breathwork and embodiment practices. I am using parts work, of course, and inner child work, and bringing my body of resources, internal resources, to the experience of self-healing, specifically to repattern the beliefs that I adopted as a smaller, younger, more innocent version of myself, and doing the worky work. So I wanted to bring some of my thoughts, my observations, my examples, and some teaching and education to you, dear podcast listener, because this is what it's all about. This is why you're listening, to expand your own resources for moving through the discomfort of being a human and becoming more of who we are and who we are here to be, becoming more authentic. That's my word of the year. So trauma work is definitely helping me with authenticity, and I'll dig into a little bit of why. I just want to thank you for being here and for listening. If you have the capacity to like the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, share the podcast, or oh my gosh, I would be so happy if you could leave me a review of the podcast. I see y'all are downloading it, so it would be wonderful to get rated and reviewed by my core community, by those of you that have been with me on this journey, some of you for a long time, back to my nutrition days 5-6 years ago, and the many friends and community members we've gathered along the way who are interested, curious, or actively working with the sacred mushroom in combination with other practices to self-heal. So let's dig in on the topic of how does microdosing support healing trauma? How does this method of working with the sacred mushroom specifically, but honestly you could be working with any medicine for this conversation, like flower medicines. Rose and passion flower are the two that I'm currently sharing in the community, and we're going to be launching hibiscus this month. So super excited to share more about that as another flower friend comes into the fold. But you could be microdosing LSD. You could be working with Bobasana or Iboga. There are a lot of sacred medicines, synthetic and from nature, that you could apply this framework and this share that I'm about to offer you to. So here we go. now let's talk about trauma first. I was ready to jump in, and I was like, nope, we need to address the elephant in the room, which is the T word. Whether it's big T or little t, it is up in our culture, in our lexicon, if that's the right word, in our language, in our collective conversation around who we are as humans, to talk about trauma or the imprints of what happened to us or what we did not get that we needed. To kind of define trauma a little bit here, the way that we have been shaped by the events and the misses that directly impacted our nervous systems, especially as young ones, and how those beliefs and stories that we adopted at the time of our traumas and as the traumas repeat themselves. Look, PTSD, if we want to define it, there are a set of symptoms that we now really know are deeply related to the nervous system and to the unfinished business in our system, in our psyche, in our soul, the ways that we fragmented ourselves to survive, to get our needs met. And so this is a very deeply relevant conversation because the whole damn world is traumatized, y'all. The whole world, and I'm not saying that from one side of the fence or another, pointing at another group of people to say, you're the reason, right? Organized religion or this political thing or capitalism, that's so traumatized. We're all fucking traumatized by the experience of being on this planet and dealing with each other. And while trauma looked very different hundreds and even thousands of years ago, I think it's pretty obvious that the modernization that has happened exponentially, even in my lifetime of 46 years, in the last 10 years, right? The last 2 years with AI, the rapid rate at which we are all connected to each other, which has its incredible gifts and is the reason we're having this collective conversation, right? And the deeply overstimulating experience of being a sensory being, a sensitive being, a being that's, let's be real, supposed to be out in nature 100 times more than we are right now, right? That isn't supposed to be staring at a screen that's telling me how long I've been talking with my outline in front of me glowing with blue light, right? We have advanced so much. You are listening to me. I'm in South Carolina and I'm going to share this, and you can listen to this anywhere in the world. It's phenomenal. It's amazing. And holy crap, it's a lot. So just the general day-to-day of being a human who didn't get their needs met or had things happen to them that they couldn't understand and make sense of and complete in their body and nervous system. Great that we have a word like trauma. Great. We need to be able to call it something. And I am really aware and tracking how hip the word is and how intimidating the word is for those of you that have decided, yes, I will acknowledge that I have been shaped by the things that happened to me or didn't happen that I needed, and I don't really want to open that door. Why do I have to go there, right? And you don't, if you don't want to. You do have that choice. And it might feel like you don't because the way that you are living in the day-to-day feels so painful because you are reliving and experiencing your unprocessed trauma in your nervous system, and it's difficult for you to perhaps stay in your body long enough to know what it is that you need, or to stop fawning and creating a life where you are literally only meeting other people's needs. Just two relational examples of how trauma can manifest. Or maybe you're so stuck in an incomplete fight response, and you may not even recognize that's what it is, that your whole being is tense and rigid. And the way that you show up in the world with your family, with your coworkers, out in your community is from a place of rigidity because you are unconsciously protecting yourself, bracing yourself, readying yourself for a fight. And this trauma response, this dysregulation in your system is a problem because you can't let go of things or stop harping on something or, right, get out of an obsessive loop that you're caught in. And actually live the life that you want to be living, feel the way that you want to be feeling. I'm not saying that trauma healing is going to bring you to some promised land where you're never going to feel uncomfortable again. As humans, we are designed to feel uncomfortable. We have a lot of discomfort to process in our world today. And I'm curious about whether I can call it something other than trauma and frame this work differently than like getting in there and excavating demons, which is I think what some people maybe think, right? Why am I going to pull stuff up that's going to potentially make me worse? And look, this concern is legitimate because when you are, and if you are not working with a trauma-informed practitioner, or you could be working with a very well-meaning trauma-informed practitioner, there's so many ways to create re-traumatization, and I'm very sensitive to that as a possibility in my work here, even as I can be a little forward in my work, or I can be a little intense. I think there are ways that I can dial back on the pressure or expectation I might place on others as they do this work or begin this work. I'm saying that just such a personal share, and that's because of the way that I relate to myself in the work, right? Intensely. And I want to just like step back for a second and have us all take a collective breath. Ready? In through the nose, out through the mouth. All the way down, let it all out, all of it. So good. Now continuing a slow and steady breath now as you hear this. You can do beautiful self-healing work that heals trauma without ever doing intense trauma work, without ever getting so thrown by what's happening that it takes you away from more authenticity and into more wounding. It is possible to do the kind of work that allows you to literally unravel the knots that are keeping you tied up in various positions and habits and stories and daily tasks. You can unravel that in a way that is sustainable and integratable. I don't know if that's a word, but it is for the purposes of this. And the kind of titrated work that works, that really works. And that's what I want to take you into here today. So I don't have another word for what to call it if we're not going to call it trauma. But I'm open to your suggestions. I mean, healing work? I feel like that still sounds intimidating. How can I invite you into what I'm going to share here? And maybe I'll ask you again at the end in a way that doesn't sound intimidating and makes you go into perhaps a freeze response around the suggestion of doing this kind of deeper work, internal work, repatterning work, nervous system reprogramming work, somatic work, deeply embodied, effective work. And I'm open to hearing, and the big drum roll here is the sacred mushroom really supports us to finding this titrated way of going in and out of these sensitive places and seeing exponential gains and returns. So let's paint the picture for what that can be like. Okay, we're going to explore how microdosing combined with embodiment, the two components that we work with here in this ministry, can help us repair what's been fractured. We can maybe I'll go through this episode trying not to say trauma, coming up with new words. And I want to really bring your attention to the fact that the fragmented parts of yourself show up in predominantly three places, at least as far as I'm concerned. They're showing up in your mind and in your thoughts for sure, right? Thinking negative, unhelpful things about yourself and others, being caught in a cycle of blaming yourself or others for why things are a certain way, obsessively trying to figure some aspect of yourself or your problems out in an extremely cognitive and linear way. When you are just lost in your mind chatter and you are allowing yourself to be taken on a wild fucking ride for wherever your mind, reminder here, you are not your thoughts, But that close identification with thoughts, very much a complex trauma and PTSD thing, that just like, that's kind of part of what's driving most people crazy, right? That anxiety that you of course you feel in the body, right? That racing in the head, or that numbing, that fog, that dissociative place where you are blank, numb, wanting to come to the conversation with yourself, but can't even get yourself there. So this is showing up, this fragmentation. I don't like this word as a substitute for the T word. This fracture in your system is showing up in your mind and your thoughts as the first place. Okay, so just acknowledging and recognizing that. It's showing up on the energetic. It's showing up in your field. It's showing up in the way, your mood, your energy, your vibe, your spiritual life or lack of a spiritual life. It's showing up in the way other people feel when you walk in a room and bring your energy body with you. Okay, I could talk a lot about that. Or how you feel when someone else walks in the room and your entire energetic changes instantly to accommodate them or to be in resistance to them and their energetics. Okay, so that's where the fracture is showing up. And lastly, of course, showing up in your body. Oh man, that's the torture for a lot of us too. Chronic pain, autoimmune, neurodivergence, the whole goddamn host, sorry for cursing, but the whole host of anything from the Western medicine paradigm that ends with the word syndrome or disorder. Every single symptom that falls in the umbrella of all the syndromes and all the disorders, it's showing up in that way too. Because all of that is deeply connected to your nervous system and to your experience of yourself as a human on this planet. Trauma lives in all three: your mind and your thoughts, the energetic, and in the tissues of your body. So just making sure we're clear there before we move on. Okay, let's get into like a tiny bit of science as just a reminder, because I feel like it's so important for us to continually, even as a spiritual ministry, anchor ourselves back in the fact that there's so much science here to support these tiny doses of sacred mushrooms or other psychedelics or plants or fungi or frequencies. I mean, we could put so many different medicines in this category. There's so much science to support what we are practicing here with consistent use of sacred mushrooms via the tincture. Okay, so neuroplasticity, right? This is the way that our brains pathways create connections, and when we get locked in survival mode, those pathways become very rigid. That's where we go into the dysregulating patterns, right? And so as we're untangling, as we're forming new neuroplastic connections in the brain, we are also patterning those into the body and through the nervous system. I kind of think of it like trauma. I can't get through this without using the word. Trauma is like the teacher, like the teacher at school that you didn't like, that like wrote on the chalkboard. Am I dating myself here? I am old enough to have had teachers who squeaked chalk on blackboards, or rather green boards, back in the 80s, and used the chalk really hard. Like imagine that there was this like squeaking, and it like, it made your like spine tingle, and like scratching like nails on the chalkboard kind of feeling. And she wrote out and imprinted this lesson on the chalkboard, right? And it's at the time when you saw it as a kid, you believed this, you took this in. Old sentences, old beliefs, outdated shit on that board, right? And written on your nervous system. At neuroplasticity, what sacred mushrooms promotes, it exponentially is like the eraser. Okay, so with those old blackboards, you could erase, but you could still see the imprint on a dry eraser of some of those words beneath it. And that's okay. We can maybe look at that as the process by which we develop new neuroplastic connections, that you're not going to be able to just erase all of the trauma in one journey. I know there are miraculous healings that happen in the psychedelic space, but I think the reason people end up in kind of possibly problematic relationship with sacred medicines is that they really rely on these medicines to like do the legwork for them, and it is so effective, and the medicine is you, boo. The medicine is you. So, you know, we can erase, we can really work that dry eraser. Kids would have to be chosen after class to be the eraser kids, and the dust from the chalk would fall down on you. Does anybody else remember this? Is anybody else in their late 40s? All right, I'm 46. I'll call that mid 40s, right? I'm aging myself now. What if at some point you got that, you know, if you wet a rag, you can really wipe that chalkboard clean. And maybe those words that were scratched in are still like, you can catch them in the sunlight a little bit, right? At a certain angle, those chalk words that trauma teacher left on the board from a long, long time ago. But you can develop more and more tools, work with more and more sacred teachers to erase that old one. And man, if microdosing isn't like a piece of fresh chalk or a tool like that can rewrite over the words of the trauma teacher the new beliefs, the awareness that you can always choose again, that you can write over and over again in the same sentence, I am enough, I am worthy, I do matter. So softening those old, you know, it's the default mode network, right? It's like this inner narrator who wants to keep telling the same story when we are dysregulated. And as a part of our survival, we have a part of our brain that keeps us in these more patterned, rigid thought patterns. And it's helpful for some functions, of course, and microdosing is going to like quiet that narrator in the default mode network, loosen those rigid patterns, and maybe turn the volume down so you can hear something else, especially if you're going to bring the embodiment and the regulation into your microdosing practice. That's when we really anchor it into the nervous system. That's when you can hear the voice of your authentic self or of God coming through to guide you to a new path, a new story, a more felt sense of safety in your system. And that is what is super critical.
Real quick, I wanted to be sure you knew that the Embodied Microdosing Ministry has a home, a free, safe space where we can gather to connect as a community and even attend a live stream monthly breathwork church service together. In this sacred space, you will have the opportunity to explore the embodied microdosing path. Inside, there's a free Microdosing for Healing mini course you can take, where I teach you the exact formula for this powerful healing method, and there's a positive social feed filled with like-minded self-healers. The best part? It's all accessible through a handy app, and joining the ministry is totally free. You can access the sacrament, ask all your questions, and work with some beautiful self-healing practices. Are you coming? Find us at embodiedmicrodosing.com or visit the show notes to learn more and join the community so you can start your healing journey today.
And science-backed. I wish I had studied a psych, but I didn't go that deep in my outline. So, okay. Microdosing plus breathwork, right? I don't need to sell you on it. And I want to really emphasize here that if you want to change the conversation happening in your mind, if you want to stop the looping thoughts, if you want to stop chasing the beliefs that you know aren't true, but that are somehow taking you on this wild fucking ride every day, you got to have a vision and a sensation and an idea of who you are and where you're going. You have to tether into that highest self part of you, that true self one of you, that part of you that is most connected to God, to source, to creator, to walk the path, to walk the healing path. I just don't know how somebody does this work without the reference point of themselves as whole. And you might have no idea what I'm talking about or how you can even anchor in to create that. That's a lot of what we're doing in this ministry. That's what we're doing at Breathwork Church the first Sunday of every month, is using the breath, using embodiment, taking a microdose, going into sacred space to touch in with the one of us who knows exactly what's going on and exactly what needs to happen. There is clarity available to you. Confusion is a protective part. Confusion is deceptive. Don't stay confused. Come into clarity by coming into your breath, closing your eyes, and going within and asking, what do I need? What is the truth? What's here now? And regulating, because you're only going to get the answer when you're feel that you have an actual body, and not just when you're chasing the thoughts and emotions to figure things out. Okay. A second way that microdosing plus embodiment supports healing, it's that emotional. It's in the emotional terrain. It's that titrated experience of being a human who has emotions. I mean, I've told many of you, but I'll tell it again. I went through, as a child, I was extremely sensitive. Many things made me cry, and my tears were met with, oh, please, and crying Ryan, and here she goes, and nobody wanted to hear me in my big feelings. And I have a well-meaning family, a loving family in many ways. I'm one of 6 kids. I can't imagine hearing that from true cruelty and abandonment and abuse. My parents are wonderful people, and they are boomers, and they were not raised to hold space for a child. This is modern parenting for sure. And as a child, I learned that I was not safe to feel, and I was rejected by others when I did. That it would get me nowhere to be a deeply feeling person. And so I stuffed that down and swallowed it and did it only in secret and felt shame around feeling. I wonder if you can relate. And so as I grew up and when I became a young adult, my 9/11 happened when I was 21, and I was a New Yorker, and the experience was incredibly traumatizing. Actually, I'll back up more to high school, where I experienced trauma in my throat chakra and had to get my tonsils removed at 16. So talk about a manifestation of the swallowing the lump in my throat, swallowing my tears actually became a point of wounding for me in my tonsils in my throat. My throat still is a teacher for me at times. I know many of you can relate. I think this is a very common wounding, especially with women, and I shut it down. It started to express as pain because I shut it down. Let's put it that way. So fast forward to being 21 in New York and experiencing multiple traumas in a row. One of them 9/11, wrapped up in a bow of some Western medicine interventions that made me feel very sick, some toxins that found their way into my system. And my health and my mind and my energetics changed quite a bit in that couple of years that I was in that trauma state as a young woman. And I decided at some point in there, I only knew it in retrospect when I looked back, to stop crying completely. That no crying was acceptable. That I had learned so many tools to keep it at bay, and I had also experienced so many things that made me afraid and numb that I just removed that option. I dissociated from it. I fragmented away from crying. What I started to come back when around the time, I think it lasted about 7 years, 8 or 9 years, actually, most of my 20s. What brought me back to tears was my first pregnancy and the death of my grandmother in my 13th week of that pregnancy, who I was extremely close to. And the awareness that, I was like not okay when it came to certain things. I wasn't okay. I wasn't dealing okay. My relationships were not okay. The way I was in workplaces was not okay. Everybody triggered me, right? Sound familiar? So the emotional healing that I've experienced over the last, okay, I could say 26 years, because I started crying again at almost 30 years old, but I really did not come to my knees to really cry, to really come back to a deep and guttural, sobbing grief session until 38, 39, 40. The change in my life when it felt like everything fell apart because I wasn't doing trauma work and couldn't hold it all in anymore. So here I am at 46, very much in this resourced terrain of knowing exactly what happened, being able to look back. I'm sure you can look back and see your whole beautiful story, whole horrible story playing itself out for the ways that what has happened to you or what didn't happen to you that you needed shaped you. And expressing and experiencing your emotions is very much part of healing your wounding. And it doesn't have to be you exploding into tears at the boardroom at work inconveniently, right? And I think some of us are worried like it's going to come out when I don't want it to. This is why we intentionally can go into a journey, a breathwork session, a microdosing drop-in, and say, I am here to feel, and creating that container is so powerful. And let me just side note here, emotions need to be experienced and felt in titration as well. Just like we talked about, how we have talked about on this podcast how important it is for little bursts, like the microdose, going in and out of anything, of everything, microdosing the breath, microdosing trauma work for sure. And if it's too much too soon, you're overwhelming your system again. My experience of crying, I had to witness myself crying and realize that as a grown woman adult, I was saying things to myself like, stop doing that and put that away, and what is going on with you, and get your shit together, because that's what I absorbed, and that's how I talk to myself around being a feeling person. And the healing isn't about me not crying anymore. The healing is about me meeting myself as a feeling being from a completely different, more supportive, deeply compassionate energy here in the space of being resourced. So it's not about I cried or I didn't cry. If I can just boil it down super simple, it's about how did you orient towards yourself? How did you meet yourself in your tears, in your grief, in your rage, in your discomfort? How are you showing up for you? And that's, for me, where the emotional healing can really start, when you are resourced internally by you, by true you, by highest self you. Here's the beautiful thing about microdosing. It does and can, I will not say this is for everyone, really call up a slew of emotions. It permissions, it purges, it allows, it releases, but we're doing it in tiny ways. You're not taking 4 grams and scream crying for an hour and a half. I did that. I have done that. It was cathartic. And also, I much prefer the small route. Okay? It's like slowly stepping into a river instead of jumping into a raging whitewater rafting current, and feeling the water kind of, your body temperature adjust, and the river kind of come up higher and higher on your leg as you get used to it. The emotions can rise, but they rise in a way that you can meet them. That's how we work with the emotional body in this work, and microdosing supports us to do that. There's deep compassion and space holding that happens with the sacred mushroom. The mushroom can show you how to do that. And with the breath on board, your nervous system says, oh yes, I can hold this. I can expand. I can open and widen my window of tolerance for feeling and meeting myself compassionately, lovingly, supportively as I do. This is how the deep healing happens, y'all. It's drop by drop. It's breath by breath. So you can let the sacred mushroom, you can ask the sacred mushroom, make it your freaking intention, right? Show me what it looks like for emotions to come up gently. Show me what I need to know to heal my relationship to myself as a feeling sensitive human. Show me what it looks like to be in reciprocity with my emotional self, with the hurting parts of me. Show me what it looks like to be able to hold myself when I feel. Show me what I need to know to become more connected to the part of me that is no longer ashamed to cry. I'm no longer ashamed to cry. That's me. I cry a lot. It's great. I cried all day yesterday. I shouldn't say all day. on and off. I had my moments. And when I let it move and when I breathed with it and when I ended up having a temper tantrum as like an intentional one, not in front of anybody, just me and being witnessed by God on my yoga mat. Rough day yesterday. Did an okay job breathing and staying present with myself, but had a lot of activation in my system and was a little frozen around a few things. And I finally just laid down and said, like, I'm just going to breathe and see what's here. And I did 10 tri-active breath, 3-part breath through the mouth, which is like a very activating breath. So I was in a state of activation, but I brought a little activation, a manageable 10 breaths of activation to myself. And then I asked, what does my body need? So took my 10 breaths, felt the energy rise, counted them out, and then when I stopped and I held, I said, what does my body need? I was in a retention, a hold at the top. And what came was to bang your fists and your feet on the ground. I'm in my cabin, nobody's here, I'm on my yoga mat, there's a hardwood oak floor beneath me, let's go. And when I exhaled, I let out a yell and a scream and a cry, and I bang, 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 banged my fists. I was on my back, banging my fists, and I was lifting my feet up. The bottoms of my feet, my knees pointed to the air, bang, 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 my face. Like a kid having a temper tantrum in like a comic book. My kids never did that gesture. Maybe yours have. They had a different kind of temper tantrum. And it was freaking awesome. It's exactly what I needed. I did it for about 45 seconds maybe. And then I stopped and I noticed and I took a few slow breaths and my system freaking shifted. I shifted out of that weird, hypervigilant, frozen, bizarro combo state that I was in and I'd been in all day. And I stood up and I walked outside barefoot on the ground and I walked myself slowly back to that house and I could feel my legs and I could feel my feet. And because I had microdosed my way effectively down into my body, I was able to then move on. You've heard of the 90-second emotional time frame, right? A big wave of emotion, even something like grief. If you allow, when you allow, as you let it move, as you meet yourself with compassion, the research shows us that it's about 90 seconds. That's an amount of time you can feel for. I sometimes need to go to the toilet or to my room or to my car or pull my hat down in Walmart if it's happening there. It's not. I'm usually in total survival mode in there. Get out. And this slow, titrated unfolding of emotions matters for healing the big stuff, the big T and the little t stuff. It's the difference between being in a state of complete overwhelm. I was in overwhelm when I felt all the time and tried to push it down. And then I was in overwhelm really, or shut down when I stopped crying. Now there's manageable waves of emotion that move because I'm a human and there's a lot of energy moving around and I have children and a ministry and you have all of your things. None of us are not busy and inundated in this world. So you've got to let those waves of emotion move as you are experiencing healing. And the crying that I used to have, in my 30s maybe when it came back was like mostly crying around like my stories and like this isn't fair and I don't want to do this and this sucks and I'm never going to be. That's when I would cry in my 30s. Now my crying is like, oh, I've got you. I see what's happening. An old story is here. Right? I'm right here with you. This is me to me. I've got you. Wow, you're really stuck on this story today that you don't matter. I'm right here with you. It feels so bad. I feel a sour taste in my mouth. I feel my hands wanting to clench. I feel that my body wants to stop. My stomach feels like stabbing and my legs are weak and numb. I don't know where I'm going with this. I think I was just modeling how to drop down into your body to feel. So, love that example. How are you tending to your emotional body in your healing work? And do you think that small doses of the sacred mushroom, embodiment practices like breathwork, could be supportive for you with what you're moving through? All right. I want to emphasize here that embodiment is the link. Okay, that we know healing doesn't happen in the mind alone. We know the body is like the library of the school where the trauma books are stored from the old dusty teachers that wrote on the chalkboard, right? And your body is also the temple where the healing work happens. So the energy needs to move, whether that's emotions, like I just spoke about in the last example, or pain in your body, a frequency that you're carrying around, right? That energy, the mood that you're in, the thoughts that are going on loop, whatever's causing that energetic frequency that you're in, you have got to be able to shift that. And that's where the host of tools in your toolkit comes in. But more than that, it's about being able to tap into a method that allows you to do this self-healing work. It's not just all about grabbing a tool and grabbing a tool and grabbing a tool. I'm giving you a lot of information in this ministry and in this podcast about how important things like parts work is for doing this work, and going within, doing drop-in work, doing work in sacred space, how important your spiritual practices are, and the things that you call upon and pray for and pray about. And if you don't have spiritual practices, like that intimate relationship of you with like something else, something bigger, nature, right? Something away from your devices and away from your triggers. So I just want to acknowledge that this pairing of microdosing with embodiment could be what you need to address the grief that's in your chest, right? Or the fear that's wrapped around your ribs, or the shame that's like clutching your guts. You start to feel with this work and in this work, and it doesn't have to be scary. Okay, moving on. I want to talk about building some self-compassion in this process, because if you don't have curiosity and compassion, these are my 2 C's. I talk about them in a whole chapter of the book. I've been working on it. And I'll switch them around. Curiosity comes first. Okay, and microdosing can really support opening yourself to being able to meet you by like, hey, I see you, you're safe here, right? There can be an opening that happens, and maybe we could just go in and see if there's any information or answers inside of us, if there's some sacred knowledge that we can acquire in the process of dropping in. So judgment and curiosity can't live together. So when you're in that curious space, when you're practicing being like, oh, how interesting, I'm noticing that I am clenching my fists a lot today and my jaw is really tight and I'm really resistant to every email that comes in and I don't want to do my work and I'm kind of jacked up in this fight mode and it's difficult for me to soften right now. Instead of, hey, what the F is wrong with you? Get your crap together. Maybe, I wonder if that 30 seconds of breath work that I did when I listened to Rise podcast could support me here now. And then you bring the breath. Are you ready? 30 seconds. We're going to do it in through the nose, out through the mouth. I'm going to change it up. Just 3 of these. Really full breaths. All the way in and all the way out. Make a little noise when you exhale. I know you're listening in the car. Let it out. Let it out. Your kids won't care. Okay, now we're going to switch to a blow breath. In and out of the mouth, and you're going to blow on exhale, like you're blowing out a birthday candle. In through the mouth, out through the mouth. We're only here for 10 seconds, so make it count. Come on, it's not silly. If you're resisting right now, you could be curious about why that is. There we go. Okay, we're going to go into a bliss breath. In and out of the nose for 10 seconds. Breath of fire. Make your belly move in and out, your diaphragm pump. That's it. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let go. And now just notice. Let your body breathe itself. No effort. Maybe noticing your heart beating, the aliveness, the energy in your physical being. And when you're ready, on your next exhale, blow all your air out and hold your breath at the bottom. Just hold here and just turn on any curiosity. Turn on a little scientist inside of you. A little loving, investigative creature with a magnifying glass, perhaps. That's what I see. What do you see when I ask you to turn on your curiosity? When you're ready to breathe in through your nose, full expansion all the way up, all the way full, every bit full expansion. Roll your shoulders back, maybe tilt your chin up. just asking, what's here for me when I'm curious about being more curious? And then let that air go when you're ready. What we're doing here, as you release, you may wish to imagine that you're releasing judgment, the harsh judgment, that inner critic, that one that just won't let up on you and let you be curious for 1 minute about something a little bit different. And just imagine if curiosity could be the thing to turn your triggers into invitations. To let what you're walking through and moving through on a daily basis to soften that inner critic and just invite the curiosity about what is actually happening within me. How do I feel? What sensations am I noticing? What do I need in this moment? What does my body spontaneously want to do when I just tune in? And do a little breath. Did you see how the breath shifted things for you? What am I being shown? So curiosity is such an important opening for this work. And then look, many of us are curious. I can turn this on. I know a lot of people who work in the self-healing space, a lot of practitioners are very good at cultivating the curiosity, but then that curiosity turns to analysis and diagnostic and very, very cognitive experience of having a healing. And you can't have a healing in the highly analytical part of yourself. You can integrate healing, but when you are truly experiencing a healing in real time, it's because you are not in that part of your brain and your consciousness. This is the invitation for you then. If you feel like, okay, I'm pretty curious, right? And I wonder if compassion is what you are being invited into next. I wonder if there's an opening here to soften in your relationship with yourself. Right? I see you. You're safe here. And to like help you have more organic responses to things rather than forced ones, rather than the conditioned ones, rather than the dysregulated ones. Is there space for you to deepen into more compassion in your relationship with yourself? I don't know where I have a long way to go with compassion. I still think that I can be really hard on myself in like insidious ways that I'm still untangling. And if I had not done this work of connecting with younger parts of myself, I don't think I would have generated the compassion that I have right now. It's so much easier to be compassionate towards the innocent younger part of ourself who first experienced or didn't experience what she needed or didn't get, or something that scared her and she couldn't integrate. So inviting you into more compassion, come to a breathwork church if you've never dropped in with yourself and made contact with you. Join the Journey to Heal membership, where we do 2 journeys every single month, and I guide you into deep sacred terrain to reprogram, to repattern, to make contact with yourself in sacred space with the sacred mushroom, and feel through it in a new way, and do this trauma healing work that I'm talking about here. This is how we repattern. Okay, what else do I want to touch on here as we talk about the benefits? I was going to list them out, but I lost count after number 2, so let's just keep making this free flow. Let's talk about sacred space for a second, because we were just talking about that with the ministry and the membership specifically. There are 17 of us at present. That we had a beautiful ceremony about a week ago under the very potent Lionsgate full moon. We spend 75 minutes in sacred space with you and with the great mystery, the universe, God, your creator, source, whatever name you use for God. And you don't have to have a strong spiritual practice to do this work. You just have to believe that there is something, a creator, a benevolent one, and it doesn't have to be the old man with the long white beard in the sky that you imagined God was. I've noticed me using the word God is triggering to some people lately, and I just invite you to be curious about that trigger. My profound belief is that we need the connection to creator to do the deepest layers of this work. There's an incredible safety that happens in the nervous system when we experience God. There is a settling. There is a sense that we are not alone, that we are connected, that we are here on purpose, that we do matter. So inviting you into sacred spaces to commune with the mushroom and the parts of you that need your support, attention, and love, and to meet any guides or spiritual teachers or animal totems or ancestors, grandmothers and grandfathers who may be able to help you on your mission, to put it pretty bluntly. Are you praying? Do you pray? Do you ask for help? Even the word pray may be triggering to some with religious trauma. That having this connection with a higher power, going into sacred space, working with healing entities, deities, source, Jesus, insert list here of possible spiritual teachers and guides that you could work with. It's endless. You decide who and what and how. This isn't about my beliefs or the person next to you's beliefs, right? And we are all in the field together, that spiritual space. So there is a shared healing that happens when we go to church, for lack of a better term. I actually think it's a great term. So generating that spiritual connection we do it in every journey inside the membership. At Breathwork Church, we're always creating that container, that sacred container. And I want to invite you in your own work with the mushroom, with yourself, in your therapy, in your relationships, at the gym, like wherever. Take a breath, close your eyes, say a prayer. What do you need? Support me, right? I need you now. Show me what's here for me. Help me be curious. Show me what compassion looks like. Ask the great teachers, all of the teachers in sacred space. Ask Sacred Mushroom. Ask yourself, your highest self. This connection to the spiritual realm is the magic. Truthfully, it's the fun part for me. Oh, okay, moving on. Let's see. I think I talked about parts work a good bit, but just, being clear that inner child work, parts work, that's very much part of how we generate healing in the ministry. You don't have to live and know and work with your inner child for the rest of your life. Some people don't want to open that door because they're like, am I going to have to take care of this little kid who's going to be like demanding ice cream in like 20 years? First of all, that's not how inner child work works. I think there's a lot of like weird rhetoric around it. Like, if you want the ice cream, go have the ice cream, even if it makes you feel sick, like, because your inner child wanted it. Like, me, I think we're caught in like a dysfunctional pattern there. And developing a relationship with the younger parts of you that experienced what you experienced or didn't experience what you need is such a freaking efficient way to do trauma work. I'm sure there's ways to do it without doing that. I just don't see why you would want to work so hard when it's like there's such a like sweet, tender, immediate connection. And yes, some people have trouble doing inner child work because the trauma has caused them to dissociate from or have very strong negative feelings about the younger part of them who allowed that to happen. It's just all couched in so much shame. But those layers can be peeled back and unraveled so beautifully inside a sacred space with medicine and with guidance and support. Like, come meet the younger self who needed someone to protect them. Be the one who protects them. Be the one who helps to meet their needs. Your highest self meets your inner child and right? Something is going to happen. Something is going to repattern. Something is going to shift in your consciousness and in your nervous system around that. So when you offer them what they didn't get, safety, tenderness, forgiveness, love, hope, space, freedom, right? A lifeline, support, protection. This is really deeply important for repatterning and rewriting the way your nervous system now responds to your life, regardless of whether you remember that thing or you think that thing affected you or not. It did. It's still alive right now every day when your nervous system can't handle life. So when we go back and reprogram, it's like updating a virus on a hard drive, right? Microdosing really opens the portals in the brain for you to go there, for you to make connections. Embodiment and spiritual guidance is going to walk you through it. But man, don't discount the inner child work. Don't shy away from it when you have the opportunity to do it. All right, we're almost at an hour here, and I know I have more to share. So I want to come back to the trauma word, the T word. Let's talk about a trauma-informed container, for lack of a better word yet, since we haven't replaced trauma. Healing container, nervous system aware container. It's a little awkward. You're met where you are. I have a program, Transforming Trauma. I am undecided about whether I'm running it again in the fall or whether I will wait until spring of 2026. But this is my flagship. I went all in. Everything I know, everything I've learned, every bit of guidance and support that I could give you and knowledge and education is in this program. 12 weeks. I meet you where you are. So some people who've taken Transforming Trauma can only show up to the live calls and just listen and breathe and be present for being in the discomfort of going within and practice going within with my guidance and support. And some people can dig into every module and watch every video and do every 20 to 30 minute breath work that's offered each week of the experience and drop into the embodiment and somatic practices and tone their vagal nerve and really go all in because they are more resourced. They have done more work. Both are respected in the space. Your no is honored if you don't want to be at a live call and you just want to watch the replay. Okay, as a trauma-informed practitioner, I have an awareness of how trauma is moving through you, how it hides, how it's surfacing. I can see it happening in real time, and I'm going to hold you in that with tenderness and some loving big sister supportive accountability for the ways that you are running from the work and keeping yourself stuck and telling yourself you can't do it and getting overwhelmed by everything. We microdose our way with the medicine and the breath to a new terrain of healing for you. So what was the point I was going to make here? The goal is to begin accessing, practice touching in with a felt sense of safety in your body and in your nervous system. And it's my deepest prayer that you get to experience that even for 1 minute inside of this ministry and inside of this container. It felt really good to share. I am going to be sending some information, some emails out. Please visit the links in the show notes if you want to keep up with me and hear more about opportunities for healing with me, because I really do love doing this work of guiding people into this rich healing space. And I'm not really sure if I want to run the program this spring, Transforming Trauma, and I need to know from you whether you have interest in doing this work. Or is the T word scared you off and you're like, maybe I'll just come to Breathwork Church. That's fine. I don't expect that everyone that interacts with the ministry and microdoses want to taste and engage in the kind of healing modality that I can take you through. And I don't want you to miss out on an opportunity that might be exactly what you need to stop living in your mind and focusing on your pain in your body and chasing your tail with your triggers. I want to invite you into a trauma-informed space. Even if you join the ministry for free, have access to the sacrament, ask your questions, take the microdosing mini course, get a little more informed about how we work in here, I want to open the door for you to do that. So wherever you're at, I meet you there, your pace is respected, and I'm here gently and consistently offering you the medicines that have worked for me and hundreds, I don't know, maybe I could start saying thousands of other people. There are thousands of people on my email list, so let's say that, and my open rates are pretty good. If you want to get on my email list, sign up for something. the ministry most likely in the notes, and leave me a message. Send me a message. Leave me show notes. Send me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. Find me on either one of those platforms, Embodied Microdosing. What do you think about the T word, trauma? What would you say instead if you have a suggestion? And are you interested in doing this deeper work? I don't know. I want to know. Should I just stay in the terrain of Breathwork Church and free drop-ins and membership and sharing sacrament with you? Or should I continue to offer these deeper places that you can go to learn how to be a badass self-healer and maybe develop some spiritual and energetic and physical support for your system in the process? Let's find out. Thanks for being here. I really, 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 really appreciate you. I like having you here. I love seeing how many episodes you've downloaded. And I just want to say that it is possible to heal. If your body felt a yes at any of this episode, come in, come closer, walk the path. Medicine is here, so is the breath, so are you. And you can rewire your brain. You can quiet that default mode network. You can titrate your emotions. You can drop into your body. You can learn how to be curious and compassionate. You can repattern and find that felt sense of safety within yourself. I believe you can, because I did. And I've supported hundreds and seen thousands of people use these methods and these tenets and these technologies and these gifts and these tools and these sacred plans to do it. So come on in. The water is fine. I love you guys. Thanks for being here.